There we go. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a minute. I want to make sure that everyone has time to transition in and get situated for the last session of the hub today, our hub convening. So thank you everyone for joining us. We'll kick it off here in a minute. Okay. Ooh, I am unmuted, right? Yes. Okay. The challenges with Zoom. Thanks, everyone. I am going to get us started. It is 4:01 here on the Eastern Coast time zone. I'm in Michigan, so anyways. My name is Joe Lasowski, and I work with the Michigan Farmers Market Association. And thank you for joining us for Grassrooting for Success, leveraging the value of community engagement. And if we could have found a longer title for you, we would have done it. Because, we've been through hub sessions all day, I'm going to skip over all of these initial slides. I do just want to reach out and thank my facilitators that are helping me today. So we have Lucia Sacco Bolts from the Ecology Center, Ethel Rosinos from the Farmers Market Coalition, and of course I'm Joe Lasowski, and we are part of the Farm Direct team working with the hub, the Nutrition Incentive Hub, and we do technical assistance and webinars, and we're the ones that you reach out to if you have Farm Direct type questions. And I'm very excited to introduce Shannon Klisch from the University of California Cooperative Extension and Lila Gutowski from the Michigan Fitness Foundation to present today. And I think I will, with that, pass it over to Shannon to kick us off. And let me stop sharing.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. I think Lucy's going to share my slides. Yeah, so I was asked to talk today about partnerships and how to leverage grassroots partnerships to increase access to nutrition incentives. In California, we call those mostly market match through the Ecology Center, and those are the ones that are most pertinent. I'm from, as we said, Cooperative Extension in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara County, so that's on the central coast of California, just to orient you. And I'm just going to talk to you about some of our partnerships and how it's worked, and some best practices that we've come up with. And what we wanted to do was start off with some questions for everyone. So there's going to be a link in the chat. So if you can go ahead and follow that, there's 2 questions there just to orient to, so I know who's in the room, and so that we all know who's here and what kind of experience we're all bringing to this space. So let us know if you're able to follow that, and if you have any questions about following that link. We'll just give a few minutes for people to answer the first question. And you can put as many answers as you want in that first question, I believe. And then if you're done, you can, I think, move on. There's one other question as well. So some of the things I'm seeing is resources that are needed are funding, money for ambassadors, help with outreach. We're going to talk about that a lot. Communication, SMS marketing. Let's see, funding is getting bigger. Staffing, absolutely. More PSC supports. Okay, great. Partners, technology, SNAP Advisory Council. Someone's chatting in something too. Let's see. Public transportation to markets, totally. Wi-Fi hotspots, elevating partnerships, great. Okay, if we can go to the next question then. Just see what sort of partnerships folks already have. So, wow, this looks like a pretty decent spread. It's hard for me to tell what percentage, but at least folks are very familiar with SNAP-Ed funded programs, it looks like. Some are familiar with food policy councils, other nutrition ed programs, extension offices, nice. Okay, some more coming in for SNAP or WIC offices. Great. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, people are pretty familiar with some of these programs, SNAP-Ed funded programs in particular. Okay, excellent. So thanks everybody for going and answering those questions for me. Since I'm going to be talking about partnership, and we can go ahead and go to, yes, this slide. I just wanted to start by talking about some places to find partners. So if you're not familiar with any of those programs that were on the survey, or maybe some of them you are and some of you aren't. So this slide is really about where can I find some partners? And so I think part of my assumption was that there was going to be a lot of market-based folks in this session, but I think this is good for anyone, even a SNAP-Ed funded program, to look for partners. So the Food Policy Network, the work group that I manage or that I chair is part of our Food Systems Coalition here in San Luis Obispo. And so the Johns Hopkins, can you repost the story? Johns Hopkins University actually posts this up-to-date, what is it called? Database where you can find a food policy network near you. So if you're not familiar with one, you can just see, is there one in my city? Is there one in my county? Who's working on this stuff? And actually that's a great place to network with like-minded folks who are really working on issues related to food access. So there's a link there. And at the end of this, I will send everyone out a link to a one-pager that I put together that talks about our work, and then some of the links that I'm going to mention here. So I'll make sure everybody has access to that. So that's a good source to look. As we saw in the survey, your SNAP-Ed program in California, we call them CalFresh Healthy Living programs. You can also look for, in some cases, the FNEP program, Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program. These are all programs that are looking at food access, nutrition, health department. Often a local health department will have a health promotion division. Sometimes it's called community wellness or chronic disease prevention. They may have a nutrition ed program or a SNAP-Ed program funded through there, or other sort of food access programs. The county SNAP office, for us, we partner with the county Department of Social Services, and they oversee the CalFresh food program. And that's where they're actually giving out benefits to folks that qualify. So that's another place to look. WIC program, even if you don't offer WIC at your farmer's market, it's a lot of overlap with the same clientele. And we found our WIC program is actually more in a better position to send out direct messages to clients. So they send out regular text messages that we help put together about, you know, hey, it's Tuesday, these markets are open and they accept CalFresh, you know. So WIC is actually a great program to look for as well. And then our local food banks. A food bank is an excellent partner. They are really in most places looking to, you know, work themselves out of business. So if they can get folks on SNAP and get them using programs like Market Match, that means more food access and less need for emergency food like food banks. So they're also a really great partner. Of course, community colleges or universities, there's a lot more work being done now around student food insecurity. So you may find that your college, your community college or university has a grant to do food access work. I know ours does. And then of course your extension office, which we saw a lot of folks are familiar with. So great. So go ahead, Lucy, to the next slide. And so why partners want to help. And I see some people already familiar with PSE work. That's policy systems and environmental change. So my perspective is really informed by SNAP-Ed work. I've been working in SNAP-Ed programs for the past 8 years, and our goal is really to improve the likelihood that low-income folks will be able to access healthy food and eat it. And so a lot of the work around policies, it's not just nutrition education, that's a huge part of the work with SNAP-Ed, but it's also around accessibility. If you're teaching folks, how to prepare a healthy meal, but they don't have access to those fruits and vegetables, then we found it's not very useful. So that's a great reason why people in nutrition education are going to want to partner with your program. And that's just from the SNAP-Ed perspective. Great, thank you, Lucy. And so I'm going to kind of drill down into our work group that I'm the work group chair for. It's through like I said, the San Luis Obispo County Food System Coalition. We're the CalFresh at Farmers Market work group. We have sort of 3 main sectors that are represented, and there's crossover in each of these organizations. And I kind of mentioned them in the original slide. But we have food access with our CalFresh Food, our Department of Social Services there. They are there for a lot of different reasons. One is that we have a really low participation rate in our county in terms of folks who are potentially eligible, and then versus those that are actually participating in CalFresh. And so what we found is that the more people know about Market Match and access to farmers markets with CalFresh, the more likely there are some, certain population to actually seek out CalFresh benefits, especially folks that maybe are elderly and before pre-COVID didn't qualify for as many benefits. Maybe it was only, $15. Well, if they can double that at the market, then they're much more likely to see the benefit in signing up for CalFresh food. Of course, our farmers market partners and our farmers, and then we have 2 SNAP-Ed funded programs that are working on this project as a cooperative extension in our county department as well. So those are sort of the 3 pillars that are represented. Our purpose is to increase the use of CalFresh at farmers markets. And we do this because we want more equitable access to healthy foods. And we also want to support our local farmers. That's probably not new to anyone here, but that's the overarching goal of our work group. Go ahead, Lucy. And so I want to get into some of the things that we do. We do meet regularly. It kind of got thrown off a little bit once we went into shelter in place and stay-at-home order here in California, but we're getting our feet back under us and we're starting to meet monthly again, or at least 6 times a year. And we really get together to collect and share data. We want to know what's going on. So having those farmers partners is really important in our work group. Our farmers market managers are there every week telling us what they're seeing in the market, barriers that folks are experiencing to accessing the market, at least the ones that are showing up, and then trends that they're seeing. And then also, what needs do they have that someone in the group might be able to help out with, for instance, signage or promotion or things like that. The other thing we do is we find funds, we find materials, and we find staff time. I saw funds come up a lot in this idea of what resources do you need. And it's interesting because as soon as we came together as a work group, we became sort of a thing that attracted different resources. So if we were all just kind of working on this on our own, I don't know that we would be able to leverage and attract as many resources that we have. They're not always the resources that we need precisely at the time that we need them, but we needed some funding for outreach that none of us really had. And then at that time, the food bank was a person was resigning, and so they had some extra funds that could be used for a lot of different things. And so we were just in the position to be ready to say, we have these materials ready to go. We just need someone to pay for the printing and put the bus ad together. And because we had this collaborative work group that was established, that was informed on the issues, that knew who needed resources where, we were able to really move efficiently on finding those, using those funds. So we find or create resources, and then we educate and promote, and then of course ask ourselves, is this working, and make sure to evaluate it. And I'll go into that a little bit more coming up. So when we asked ourselves that first question, or we started collecting data, we wanted to know what is going on, who's using the market, who's not using the market, and this is all around CalFresh users mostly. And then what's going on, what can we change? So go ahead and advance once, Lucy. So I kind of put these on how we frame them in terms of things that are more difficult, and then things that are easier. So the more difficult things that were going on when we went out to talk to folks, and we did focus groups with low-income Spanish speakers in our community in the North region and the South region that live near farmers markets. And so some of the, and then we also did a literature review. And so some of this data is from our focus groups and some of it's from our literature review. That of course, there's these things that are hard to change that are barriers to attending the farmers market, either the time or the location. It's difficult to change that, although sometimes they just change spontaneously. A lot of our folks had difficulty signing up for SNAP in the first place. And because we have our Department of Social Service partner there, we were able to share that data with them, the experiences that folks were having when they went in to sign up for CalFresh or SNAP. You know, and then this one, administration of programs is costly or confusing. That was actually from our market managers, and we hear that a lot. And that's definitely something that's difficult to change. Other things that get, you know, more towards the middle is, you know, this perception that the food is too expensive. Folks do not feel welcome. Not everyone, but some have had bad experiences. It's not a one-stop shop, so I can't just go there and get everything I need for my family. No one there speaks my language, or limited variety of culturally relevant produce. And then sort of on the easier side of things to change, that folks just didn't know. They didn't know where the farmers markets were. They didn't know when they were happening, you know, what was going to be there. They didn't know that you could use benefits there, or that they had market match, and then of course, how to use them. We found a lot of our participants saying, you know, it's really important that I know how to use my, you know, CalFresh benefits when I go there, because I don't want to go there and have food in my hand that I'm trying to pay for with my CalFresh tokens and then not take it, because what am I going to do then? It's an embarrassing situation. It brings up a lot of fear, rightly so, for folks. So they really just wanted more education around that. They wanted someone to show them how to use the market and see people that they know using the market. And then other things like information that's not in their language, or it makes no sense to them. So we showed them some of the flyers that we had and we had put together, and they critiqued them for us to make them clearer. And then also that maybe they felt the information was unreliable, or that because it's so complicated, not all the markets except CalFresh, not all of them have market match. Sometimes it might be $10 of market match, and sometimes it might be 15. That they can't rely on these things being available. So consistency, which is probably on the harder end, but the communication and education, we're going to put on the easier end to at least chip away at. And then also this idea that, you know, it's okay if it's not a one-stop shop, as long as it's like a fun place to go and have community and it's family friendly and I feel welcome. Then, you know, then you're not going there because it's a one-stop shop. You're going there because it's a place to be out in the community. So go ahead, Lucy. And so go ahead, back one more, Lucy. Thanks. So just what we decided to do is start with some of the things that were easier, start with some of the things that we can change. And look, depending on your market, you might be able to, you know, things might look different for you. Some things might be easier to change than others. These were just some of the areas where we felt like we could focus on. This was pre-COVID, but anyway, so go ahead, Lucy. So also we found some things that were already working, either talking to market managers, talking to our focus group participants, or from the literature. And really one of the things that's working for farmers markets is that people love farmers markets. It's a great place to go. They have healthy food, they have high quality food. We heard this time and again from our focus group participants. It was a place to get really healthy things, really high quality produce. It was a place to be with community for some. And it's also, you know, for other folks, it was environmentally friendly because it's local, and it also supports the local economy. So living in a more conservative county, that's also a really important selling point. And then this is one of our quotes from one of our focus group participants. And I'll just let you read that really quick. Okay, great. So I love that quote. I think it's a great quote. It was just like, that's how you sell it, right? You start with what's working for folks. Why do they like the farmers market? And so our work group process, I think I'm running out of time here. Just cut me off if it's time, but was really to go back and revise our materials based on this information that folks were giving us. They really wanted to know, what could they buy with their EBT card? What could they not buy? There was another one with what they can buy with their market match, what they can't buy. So try to make materials really, really clear for them based on their feedback. And another important part of our work group is that we have broader networks. So there's a core group of us that get together that talk about these issues, that revise materials and get the word out. But then we have a much broader list of folks that are in client serving organizations or have connections with CalFresh users that we can then get that material out to. So we then connect with our networks to amplify these messages. That one picture on the bottom is a bus ad. Again, like I said, once we had an entity, we had a place to kind of collect funds and mobilize them to get the word out. Then we do this distribution and promotion and try to evaluate again. Is that working? What trends are we seeing? What barriers are we seeing? So go ahead. So I just have some suggestions from our work for quick wins for your markets. And I think some of the things are obvious and maybe some of them aren't, but really looking at your market with fresh eyes. So it helps if you have a partner or a coalition or a group of people who could go to the market who maybe don't go there every week to say, to ask, if I was a first-time customer, would I know how, where, and when, and what to do with my SNAP benefits? It's really great to see what you might find when you look at your market with fresh eyes, and then talk to your partners about, okay, this is signage that we need. This didn't make sense. And sometimes it's very easy things that make the world of difference in communicating to folks. Then I would say, don't reinvent the wheel. This is also very obvious. There's tons of free templates out there. And in the resource I'm going to give you, there's some links to Ecology Center in California, who's made a ton of free templates that you can download and customize based on markets in your local area. Michigan, I think, who's speaking after me, has some great materials as well. So you don't need to reinvent things. You just maybe need to tweak them for your clientele, the language, and to make things clear for folks too. And then I would say, look for those partners that are client serving organizations and get this info out to them. So public housing sites, we've partnered with a lot, libraries, like I said before, WIC, they send out weekly texts to clients. And then of course our DSS offices or SNAP offices. And just make sure the communication is really clear. I know it's hard because it's actually more complicated than it needs to be, but just the when, where, how to use SNAP at the market was really important to our focus group participants. And then also don't forget free media. We've gotten a ton of free media just by sending out press releases. So, hey, did you know Market Match went up to $15 for the month of August? Or, hey, did you know markets are a great place to shop during COVID because it's outside? So just always trying to find like, who's your media person? Who's the person who is either writing about or doing news stories about food or health or anything related to farmers markets. And we've gotten a ton of free media that way. Next. So quickly, some of our outcomes. I took over this work group in 2017. They had originally started in 2015, but I don't have a lot of data before that. So since 2017, we've seen about a 90% increase in CalFresh and Market Match redeemed in our county. I'm not going to say it's all because of our work group, but we've done a lot of work to really get the word out and let people know about the program. And we still have a long ways to go, absolutely too. And then the woman on the left, you see our disaster service worker at the market. Like I said, when you have something like a work group or an entity, a group of people working on this, it's a great place to just gather resources. So in the middle of COVID, when the stay-at-home order was issued, one of our market managers reached out to us and said, I really need some help managing social distancing. I need help with food safety and educating customers. And we were in the position to ask our county, hey, we have some market partners that are working to make food accessible to all members of the community through CalFresh and Market Match. Can we sign up for some disaster service workers? So we were positioned to ask for that help, and we got over 14 disaster service workers over the course of 3 months, and they were able to spend 180 hours of their time, helping farmers markets stay open. So I find that as a really neat outcome as well. And then coming up, what's next? These are our goals for the coming year. We try to set really concrete goals each year and see how we've done. We want to see another 20% increase in redemption at markets that currently accept CalFresh. We wanted to assist one new market in the southern area of our county in accepting CalFresh. Right now, we don't have any markets that accept CalFresh south of our city to the county line. And so that's a major barrier for folks because those are areas where we have a lot of CalFresh users. And then we want to also develop a plan for outreach and to take on some of the administrative work of EBT at farmers markets and market match, and eventually market navigators, which we were hoping to start this year. That didn't happen because of COVID, so we're hoping to get that going soon. I think that's it for me. Is there one more? Oh, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And we do have a question for you in the chat that I'm hoping you can jump in and answer, but I want to make sure Lila has a chance to get her presentation in. So Lila, I will pass it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, Joe, can you give me a thumbs up that you see my slide good? Okay, thanks. Thanks so much for inviting me here. This is really exciting. The Farmers Market Food Navigator program is something that I've been working on with MIFMA and other partners for about 4 years now. So it's been really fun for me, and I love sharing these slides. I usually do it with my partner, who's Teresa here, with her daughter Penelope in this picture. She's our project manager and I'm the evaluator. So I'm going to try and do Teresa's part too and make her proud. Just a little context for our organization, Michigan Fitness Foundation. We're located in Lansing and we're a nonprofit, and we're one of the 2 statewide SNAP-Ed implementing agencies in Michigan. And the way that we operate our SNAP-Ed is through a proposal process where we fund local organizations to do whichever programming makes sense for the populations and the areas that they serve. So we have about 40 to 50 partners each year that we support with capacity building and things like that. We also operate Safe Routes to School statewide and have an AmeriCorps program in 5 communities across Michigan and a GusNet program. So I've been really enjoying this conference. We had a Feeney pilot a couple years ago, and we're in our first program year. And so this has been really great learning. So I will be brief on sort of the impetus for the program. Luckily, Shannon covered the different barriers that people had. We found those same barriers around thinking that it was too expensive. There was transportation issues. It didn't feel welcome or like it was made for them, even if it was located within low-income areas. So we had some local partners that were already doing farmers market work, and we really wanted to connect at a deeper level to understand how this could work within SNAP education within Michigan. We knew we wanted to complement and enhance incentive programs, provide nutrition education, and address some of those policy systems and environmental barriers. So let's see here. Enter Joe in the middle picture there. So luckily we have some great pictures of this program because our IT manager does professional photography on the weekend. So here we've got Clara, one of our food navigators that reported to Joe, Amy, another food navigator, and then Joe is nicely showing this melon to Teresa's mom, who came along for our photo shoot as well. So we knew that we weren't the experts at farmers markets. We were the experts in nutrition education. And so we partnered with MIFMA for a 3-year pilot, and we allowed them to operationalize their expertise. So they recruited farmers markets. They actually recruited food navigators, and they did report to Joe and his predecessor. And we weren't looking for those food navigators to be nutrition educators like we had in SNAP-Ed. We really wanted local folks who had a passion for food systems, a passion for being at the market, to see what this could work like in many different types of settings, not just in SNAP-Ed. So here's just a little bit of our timeline of what we've done so far. So we had that 3-year pilot with MIFMA, and we went in really kind of emergent and just let different folks do different things based on their market, based on their interests, based on what they were finding when they talked with shoppers. And then we started kind of calling those successes and those best practices and started making things a little bit more structured and supportive. And so we ultimately ended that 3-year pilot with a playbook where we could put all of these pieces of information in, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future slide. And then in 2019, we rolled it out with local SNAP Ed implementing agencies that wanted to do that across Michigan. And that's where we set our evidence base. So we actually looked at what outcomes could come from this program that tried to balance that fidelity and structure with that local relevance. And then in 2020, we were accepted into the SNAP Ed Toolkit of Interventions, which goes through a peer-reviewed process, and we had the highest level of evidence base at research tested. We also, we all know that we had COVID going on last year, and that looked different in every market, right? And so we did work with our food navigators to understand what additional resources and sort of attachments to the program. We didn't change the program at all. We just tried to expand it and adapt for the local relevance piece, again, with that piece as well. So we came up with 4 key roles that a food navigator does. And each one of these related back to those barriers. It also related to what our stakeholder groups were telling us. So when we get to those evaluation slides, I'll share a little bit about our stakeholders and how we collected information and what they said. But basically, that first part is that community outreach. And so going back to, people didn't think it was for them. They didn't know they could use their SNAP there. They didn't know about things like Double Up Box and WIC Project Fresh. And so part of it was just making sure we were doing outreach and promotion of the market and the food assistance available there as a way to make people say, like, hey, we've designed this situation and this shopping experience for you to be successful. The next component was to help shoppers. And so this could be from everything from helping them navigate how to get their Double Up Bucks. It was also kind of taking them on informal tours through the market, introducing them to vendors, having them talk with vendors, talking also about how to select produce. If you're like me, you love artichoke dip. I also don't know how to pick an artichoke. I know what they look like and they're intimidating. And so I would have no idea, how to walk up there. And then on top of it, if you're using tokens and things for the first time. So we really tried to focus on those first time shoppers that were coming based on that community outreach. And then nutrition resources. So this is where our partners were already, they were already doing this. So they were already doing a table with food demonstrations and tasting recipes and talking about nutrients and things like that. And so that's a core piece of SNAP Ed. And so we wanted to see, how does that work and what resources were the easiest to either implement or adapt for a farmer's market. And we did have to adapt some of the things that we normally use in a school setting or a grocery store. And then that increased access. So that's that policy, systems, and environmental change work. And this was the hardest one for us, not the hardest. It took the longest amount of time to figure out what to do and what this looked like. Policy, systems, and environmental change work is something that is very foundational within SNAP Ed work, but typically it's where you are supporting sort of one person at the site or the organization that you're working with. So if you're working at a grocery store, you're talking with that market manager, or sorry, that grocery store manager about how to create a better environment or different ordering systems to really help SNAP Ed participants. In a market, it's like each vendor is their own store, right? And then you have this market manager. And so it took us a long time of collecting information from vendors and market managers, and then seeing what else was out there to be able to develop an assessment that would help a conversation between a food navigator and a market manager about things that could support their shoppers more. So this is just the cover of what our playbook looks like right now. That's Amy talking with a shopper in Grand Rapids. And so this really was just, like I said, a way to compile information of what worked. So we have everything in here from an elevator speech on how to talk about what your job is as a food navigator, to how to facilitate a conversation with a market manager when you're trying to recruit them into the program and program there for the first time. We did a lot of layout on feature items that are common for a farmer's market across the season within Michigan, which is sort of June through October. And then with each one of those feature items, we tried to lay out activities, recipes, food tastings, supportive, if you were going to do a giveaway, should you do a colander versus a spatula, that kind of thing. And so that allowed for as much structure as a food navigator was looking for. So if you're a food systems person and you end up in this job, you're going to want a lot of structure about sort of how to do that education piece, but you don't need help with that vendor and that facilitation, walking around. And so we wanted to make sure that they were supported, and a nutrition educator who might not need all of that structure could still have flexibility. They didn't have to do what was laid out, but they had more support on how to talk about the program and how to introduce to vendors. And so we really wanted to provide structure without restriction. So now we get to the evaluation slides. And I just want to, note that we really looked at all of our stakeholder groups, and over the course of the many years, we did interviews, we did focus groups, we did surveys online, we did paper surveys. And so we did a lot of different ways to collect information. And Joe even got to do some data collection. Yay for data collection. So all of that information was done each year and then helped refine our program. So if we heard the first year that the vendors weren't even really sure about what this food navigator thing was and didn't have contact with them, well, then we made our training part about that more robust, and we did check-ins with food navigators about how that was going. And we tracked that more the second year. And then we saw that go up in our surveys after the second year. So I'm just going to share a few pieces of information. I also have a link to a one-pager that has some of these outcomes in it. And I have two sort of local stories about different food navigators. One that was working on a prescription for health connection, and then another one in one of our big markets in Saginaw. So I'll also drop those in the link as well. So across 5 seasons, each year we were in 5 to 17 markets. So that's a lot of fluctuation. Our food navigators reported more than 900 days in markets talking with shoppers. And we had over 40,000 interactions with shoppers. This is Josh. He's our food navigator in Saginaw. And in the year 2019, so this was the year that we set that evidence base, we were in 7 markets, and we had 108 days reported by food navigators who interacted with more than 7,500 shoppers and had 395 interactions lasting 20 plus minutes. That's important for SnapEd because that's what we call a direct education contact. It also allowed us to know sort of how those interactions were being split between doing that tasting and that connection at the table versus that longer term kind of tour introduction to vendors, so that we could see what that split looks like. So market managers in 2019, 6 of the 7 filled out our survey. 100% reported that the food navigators provided tools or resources to shoppers. So that's good. They saw them doing their job. And 83% said that that food navigators showed shoppers how to use their food assistants, and that having a food navigator increased fruit and vegetable sales at the market. That's an important metric that we measure each year because it helps recruit new markets. So you want to have market managers and vendors see a value add to their market, because it does take time and effort and a little bit of space in the market. So we want to make sure that they see that value. And you can see in 2019, our vendors also saw 63% of them said that the Food Navigator increased fruit and vegetable sales at the market. 84% said they wanted more shoppers who used food assistance, and 97 had interactions with the Food Navigator. Most of those were at least once a week. So shoppers, that's an important stakeholder group too, right? So we have a few different ways that we collected information from them. I'm just going to briefly touch on this. So basically we asked, you know, are you going to do any of these things because you interacted with a shopper? And those were little tear off pad surveys with just 2 questions. And so they could fill them out any day that they were in the market. What that allowed us to do is some people filled it out more than one day, and we could get some dosage because we did ask for contact information on there. And so we know that 133 people filled out one of those little tear pad surveys more than once throughout the season. And of those people, 29% increased their vegetable consumption frequency from that first interaction until their last interaction. And so that's getting us actual behavior change. No, we can't attribute it all to the program, and that's okay. I mean, that's very common when you're looking at trying to evaluate these types of programming. And we also had, so here's Cassidy, one of our public health fellows, doing a shopper intercept survey to Teresa. And so this is a posed picture. But she did a project one year in 2019, and she created a comparison group of markets. And so we had Joe help with that too. So trying to make sure we were matching on the right types of information. And 2 things really stuck out in that intervention versus comparison group, which was 122 sample at the intervention markets and 57 at the comparison markets. There was a statistically significant difference in how many shoppers felt confident in talking to vendors about food assistance, and in shoppers being confident in how to use their food assistance benefits. So this is a great example of adding on to incentive programs and still seeing that value there of having that Food Navigator in the market.
Lila, I'm gonna jump in real quick and just let you know that we are running out of time.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
I'm good. I only had a couple more. So, you know, not surprisingly for COVID, we did a lot more with social media promotion than in-person promotion. And then this, I'll just leave this up for a second. This has some different ways that you could find out more information if you were, if you wanted to do some Googling. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for jumping in at the last minute to do this presentation.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. It's always nice to have friends to call in.
Well, you collected data for me. I owed you one.
Yeah, I got to spend days at a farmer's market. I was very disappointed. We did have one question about, oh, and I've lost it here. Hold on. Oh, if members of the group today could access the playbook.
I'll have to check on that one, but if they can, is there a way I can get it into like the incentive hub after the conference is over? Because I know it's ending right now, basically.
Yeah, it is ending right now. I'm sure there's a way we can do that. If you would like links to this, or yeah, if you would like more information on the playbook, feel free to email me, joe@mifma.org, and I can send it over to Lila and Teresa once their team figures out the best way to share that information. Yes, thank you, Amanda, for popping that in. Thank you so much to both of our presenters. I really appreciate everyone jumping in today and for all the discussion in the chat box. In the last minute, if there's any last minute urgent questions you would like to ask, I would recommend that now. Otherwise, please join the last session as we close out the hub convening. And thank you everyone for participating.
Someone asked really quick, Joe, someone had asked about our data ranking the barriers, and that was not based on how many people listed those barriers. That was a mix of data coming from focus groups, farmers markets, managers and the literature, and then we ranked them in terms of things we felt like we could tackle right now versus longer term.
Great. Thank you so much for jumping in with that, Shannon.
Mhm.
All right, it is 4:45 here on the East Coast, and so I am going to officially close out this session. Thank you to my facilitators for supporting and helping me plan this session. You guys are my rocks. Thank you so much. I'm such a team player today. All right, see everyone in the last session.